Hey, what's up? It's Comic95, the Savior, and for this video, I want to talk to you guys about a little bit about me, but kind of going off to another subject. So I really could have made this a normal video, but again, I wanted to kind of talk about my own situation too. So yeah, I'm going to be able to make a new kind of video depending on what the outcome is. I recently applied for a part-time job in which I would only be working on the weekend. I'm looking to make some additional income to add towards savings and also to help pay off some debt that I do have. So yeah, but the catch is I actually applied to this job a year ago, and well, almost a year ago, and they, for whatever reason, did not choose to hire me. Um, so yeah, I'm really surprised. The manager, she remembers me, even although last time I applied for a full-time position, and she got back to me right away in less than 24 hours, thanking me for applying again, as she said. So she remembered me and asked to schedule an interview. She was really, really nice last time, and she seems to be just as sweet this time. So I'll never really know why she didn't hire me, but just going based off of the facts that I have at hand, I did not look professional at all, but it was for reasons that were out of my control or out of my control at the time. As you guys know, the reason why I'm in my whole situation right now, hair-wise, although my hair is making a comeback slowly, I had relaxed and bleached the crap out of my hair and dyed it back to back. And it wasn't the relaxer that really did it. The relaxer did damage my hair from me over processing it because I was overlapping my relaxers. I've already made videos talking about this, but it was the bleaching that messed it up. I literally bleached my hair for way too long. Then I stupidly relaxed it and dyed it like 3 or 4 times back to back in less than 48 hours. I did not know what I was doing. I had no idea that that was going to happen to my hair. So, and the reason why it still hasn't gotten back to where it should be is I stupidly continued to overprocess my hair last year. So I just recently went cold turkey and stopped for the past 4 months. So yeah, but this video is not supposed to be a talk about my hair. I'm just saying that I'm pretty sure that's the reason why, because my hair was so damaged at the time, like it wasn't even safe for me to color it. So I literally showed up to that interview with brassy, orangish red hair. And yeah, it didn't help that this particular interview also required you to, they didn't really want you to like dress up or anything, like wear casual clothes. So not gonna get into that, but I'm happy that she's given me another chance. So I'm hoping that if they do hire me, I can kind of talk about, what that process was like, because it's pretty awkward, knowing that this employer had the chance to hire me full time and didn't accept me. Also at the time, beyond my appearance, I lacked work experience for starts. And on top of that, I did not have a work visa at the time. So yeah, with all of those things said, in their defense, they had several reasons to not hire me, but still does kind of hurt. I'm glad they're giving me another chance because normally employers don't. Like, if things didn't work out the first time, I think they feel it's too awkward for them to go through the interview and hiring process again with you. And again, normally they just have so many options they don't, care to. But my resume has expanded. I think she maybe really did like me as a person and just, found it too risky. Like, oh, she doesn't have the appropriate visa. She doesn't look the most professional. And obviously there were probably better options on the plate for her. So this isn't to bash me or make up excuses for them, but I would just want to say that that's a future video idea that I have. But it kind of got me thinking about something else. I've said this before in my comment section, but there's something that people never really talk about from a foreigner perspective being in Japan. Specifically, if you are an American, especially if you're from a major city, it's so weird being here that jobs are just so easy to get in Japan. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some loopholes and tricks you have to go through, especially if you are not a native English speaker, but I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who is a native English speaker and that does have a bachelor's degree. It is just so simple here, and even without one, even for like regular retail like jobs, it is so easy, super simple to get a job anywhere. You can literally apply for a job and be asked to work that evening. It's just crazy. And that's stuff that I could never imagine or never dealt with in the US. Living in America, specifically Chicago, where I'm from, even to get a job somewhere like at Walmart or at McDonald's or Starbucks, any of the big chain, restaurants or stores, interview processes are lengthy. You normally have to go, for maybe a second interview. There's a phone call. There's the background check, drug tests, screening with checking references and all different type of stuff. And then you go through all of that to either not get the job or you're lowballed and offered the lowest possible salary. My first job that I ever had, I was only making $8.25. And if you live in Chicago, that is a garbage, pay rate. And even with that, my hours were crap. And the interview was, it was competitive. There were a lot of people that showed up. It wasn't just me there. There was literally a whole group of people. And so Walmart was actually my first job. So I couldn't even get an interview, guys. I couldn't even land an interview at McDonald's. Like, that's unheard of. Here in Japan, places here are so desperate for employees. They literally have the manager's phone number is like up on walls, like posters with the manager's name, phone number, all their contact information, asking you to email and or call them for an interview. And they will schedule one with you on that day, if not during that week. And normally right after you interview, you're given a job offer right away, if not within a week. In America, you're lucky if they get back to you within a week. Normally, you can be waiting anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks plus. And not just that, you do all of that to get a salary that you can't even live off of. So don't get me wrong. People oftentimes talk about how expensive things are in Japan, in which I can tell you that they definitely are too. But the expenses here are within, how can I say, it's reasonable for what you make, so to speak. So for example, somebody that's working a cafe job, etc. Let's say you're working at, I don't know, I can't think of any cafe names here right now. But let's say you have a job working at, some type of cafe here. Let's say Starbucks. And here, just making, your $10, $12 an hour, you can easily afford to live inside of your own apartment without any roommates. And sure, you're not going to have a ton of money left over, but you have more than enough to live off of. You're not struggling. You aren't quite exactly past the living paycheck to paycheck, but you're not quite exactly living paycheck to paycheck either. You can live, you can afford to go out to eat. You're not, I don't know how to explain it. You're not looking for pennies around your apartment, basically. You can survive off of the money that you have. You don't have to go to a food pantry here. You don't need government assistance here. Whereas in the US, that's unheard of. You cannot possibly live by yourself working a job at McDonald's, living in any of the 3 biggest cities in the US. That means Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago, the 3 biggest cities. You cannot do that. In Japan, you most certainly can live in Osaka, Tokyo, or Kyoto, which I believe are the 3 biggest. Or is it Kobe? I always forget. I think it's Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo. Of course, the order is different. But yeah, like it's just crazy to like even think about that. Like that's stuff that you could never do. So yeah, like it's something that it sounds like such a small thing, but of course, when you end up in a situation like myself, where you don't have money, you don't have a job, you're in a bad situation, like you're grateful for that. The fact that you can just easily get up and, find work at a cafe, find work at a convenience store, find work at a restaurant. You can do simple things like that that are just unheard of in the US. I could never. If you lose your job in the US, you normally have to spend hours and hours. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Filling out job applications and resumes and these trick questions and these, intelligence tests and customer service tests and all of these different things. And even references, which can also screw you over too. Like they don't do, which there's pros and cons to this, do not get me wrong. There are some situations where Japan does need to tighten up, especially when it comes to working with and dealing with children, like my job. But for regular work, when you think to yourself, like, why do these things even matter? Like, I feel like you get a better idea of a person when you actually talk to them face to face. Like, why give people stupid scripted tests where it's obvious, pick the fake answer that makes you seem like the perfect employee? And some of them are kind of tricky. Like, maybe you are a good person, but you didn't know what they're looking for, so you chose the wrong answer. And because you chose the wrong answer, now you failed this test. So you don't even get through, to HR where they'll even call you back. And even that, like having to wait on a mystery phone number to call you. Everything's done electronically via email here in Japan. For the most part, you will get emails back. And of course, some things are handled over the phone. But Yeah, like it's such a blessing, such a luxury in a way, when you are a student and or even when you're working and you fall on hard times. And even for people that have, a degree like myself, like if you want to switch jobs, it's so much easier to give up, working for one company, whether you're teaching or doing whatever else, you're working an office type job. It's so much easier to get up and switch and move to another city and move to another company, etc. And don't get me wrong, of course, you might have to do some more shopping around to find exactly what you're looking for, to get the pay that you want, the environment that you want, etc. But just the fact that you can find work. I literally went almost a year between jobs. Oftentimes, when I was working in the U.S., I would go anywhere from 3 to 4 months to 6 months, etc. And the only reason why I was even able to find those jobs is oftentimes I would literally, spend whole days just filling out resumes, filling out applications, constantly back to back and forth, sending out my resume to every single place without getting any reply back. And the ball is really, in the employer's court. They have so many applicants they can screen through. They can choose to pay, like literally, if jobs were to pay $4 an hour, people would still apply to them, apply for them because they have no choice. Whereas here in Japan, companies have to make themselves competitive. Why work for you only making $10 an hour when this place will pay me 13? So it's really like just a whole nother world in that sense. It's hard to imagine, hard to believe. And when I tell Japanese people, like from my friends and boyfriend, whoever else, like they don't understand. They don't even believe you. I think in their mind, it's like, how is McDonald's a competitive job? And not to bash McDonald's, people always use it because it's the biggest, chain company. There's no shame and nothing wrong with working there. I wanted to work there desperately. It was like a dream job for me. But I actually got a job at Starbucks before I got a job at McDonald's. So, but yeah, like it's just so weird, like going from a country where you are literally fighting for penny salaries to a country where they are desperately in need of workers. And I know they give different reasons for it. Like they often use the excuse that the population is, dwindling, so to speak. There aren't as many people here, but I'll be the one person to speak my own mind and say that I don't believe Japan really has a population issue. And I think the real thing is similar to the US, Japan was really overpopulated, actually. This country is too small for everyone here to even own an entire house. And I've gotten into an argument with this, talking to, my European and Canadian coworker who disagreed with me. But look at this country. There's over 120 million people here, and we're all living in 2x2 apartments and paying nearly $1,000, if not more than 1,000, for our apartments. These apartments are literally studios, if even that. They're the tiniest of studios in comparison to what we have in the US. It is not humanly possible for even half of the population to own a house here. There's not enough space. And with that said, there needs to be, a decrease in population. I do think obviously more people, do need to have children in order to keep up with, the birth rate so that people actually have someone to marry and reproduce it when they get older if they choose to go that route. So that is another issue within itself, but I don't think that's directly affecting the workforce, so to speak, but rather there's a lot of people that, have better options. There's always new companies, new stores opening up. The, salaries are competitive with these, part-time jobs. And most people in Japan, to my knowledge, I don't know what the statistics are, but in my opinion, I find that a lot more people here are college educated than those in the US. So I think that's also another big factor too. And this brings me to my last topic I want to talk about. I see people in my comment section all the time, as well as other people's comment sections, and they make the argument that, degrees are a waste of money and you shouldn't go to college and you can do this and you can do that. And I've talked about this so much on my channel, but I think that's literally the dumbest argument. And I think it's really sad because it's literally the situation of 3 different kinds of people. You have people that are, filthy rich, that either inherited money or got lucky, came up with some type of crazy idea or did something really simple that they made money off of that cannot be repeated. It's just luck. Or someone that did go to school and now that they have their money, they accredit all of their success, fame, fortune, whatever, to their own, set of skills and not anything they got from school. Or third, the person that is literally sitting back at home behind their computer screen like myself and is literally preaching to you about stuff they're not even doing though. So this is how I see it. And people can disagree if they want to, but I'm speaking from personal experience with my own life. No, I'm not filthy rich or anything like that. But just speaking from someone that grew up, living paycheck to paycheck. And I've definitely been there even recently. Like I said, this is not to base an example off of myself per se, but just speaking from my own experience, if that makes sense. I would much rather be in debt for student loans, which you can go to school without having a dime to pay in debt, towards student loans, might I add. But I do have debt. I would rather have 3, 5, 10, 20 times the debt that I have if it means that I can make more money per month. It is a nightmare having to live paycheck to paycheck. I think about my life growing up and how little I had and how excited I got over little things. For me, I was happy when we had name brand candy, name brand chips, name brand pop, little things like that. Name brand ice cream, just name brand groceries. I didn't get my first name brand pair of shoes until I was in high school, and I begged my mom. It was a pair of DC Comics Superman Converse shoes. And I wore the crap out of those shoes. I wore them all the way until I was a sophomore in high school. I wasn't able to buy myself a pair of Nike shoes until, like I just said, I got my first job at Walmart. I spent a good chunk of my first check on it so I could have comfortable shoes to walk in that matched my uniform. I just recently threw them away a few years ago after moving to Japan. I could never dream of these things as a child. And are branded things super important? No. But my concept and understanding of money was so different from a normal person. I saw these things as luxury items, like you have to be rich to have them. And one part of it made me value my things more because I knew what it was like to have nothing, but just basic necessities. When I first started working, I used to actually, use my own check, and I kind of like turned my bedroom into a mini apartment, so to speak. I bought myself my own toilet paper, my own detergent, just name brand things that I never had. We didn't buy Tide. We didn't buy, Charmin Ultra, like things like that. We didn't do that. We bought whatever the cheapest, of anything was. And even now, like some of that has actually helped me in a way. Like it's rubbed off of me here in Japan. Like I still buy, I switch back and forth between buying cheap tissue and tissue that costs a little bit more. But like little things like that. Some things I'm okay with getting generic and cheap. And it's not that there's anything wrong with generic stuff. I still love Aldi to death. But my point was that even with us buying dirt cheap stuff, we would go weeks at a time where we would have practically nothing, where, there'd be a hot dog with no bread or ramen, sometimes even without a seasoning pack. Like it would just be the bare minimum, eating peanut butter and jelly. Pretty much the focus meal of the day was dinner. And no, I wasn't starving, as you can see, but you get what I'm saying? Like we didn't eat normal, regular meals. And the food that we ate was junk food, which also contributed to me being overweight. It wasn't that we were necessarily eating a ton of food and, living like kings, but the food we were eating was low quality. I couldn't go out and do things that my normal friends could do. I didn't have birthday parties. When I did go to parties or events, I had to get something that was cheap, something that was affordable. I remember going to school at one point and I literally was down to like 2 pairs of jeans and one of my jeans had a hole in them. I would literally get like 1 pair of shoes to last me the entire school year. And yes, there's people living so much worse than me. This is not a feel sorry for me, sympathize for me story, but rather to say, I never want to live through that again. So many of you have so much pride and have been so brainwashed, people telling you, oh, college is bad, do this, do that, hustle, 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 hustle. Look at how much harder you're working for the garbage salary you're getting and the hopes and dreams of making it big and being rich. When if you put your pride aside and put all of that work, effort, and energy into just going back to school, working a stable job where you get a stable salary and using that stable salary to then create your own business while you have the security of a real career. I don't understand why people don't want to do that. Like you don't have to work for somebody for the rest of your life. But why make things hard for yourself? I literally remember the feeling that I had when I saw my checking account first have $1,000 in it at once. I was shocked. And this time it wasn't because it was a tax refund or some sort of, company bonus from working at some part-time job at Walgreens or something like that. No scam needed. And even better, I was doing something that I really loved, something that I liked. I no longer work at that company, but my point isn't the company itself, it's the career path. I'm a teacher, it's what I like to do. Teachers don't even get paid that much in comparison to other other careers that you can choose. So I just really hate when I see people, pass that on. People would rather do everything, all of the work, time, effort, and energy that people put into finding ways to go around having a degree. It's wasted. I remember during my interviews before my degree, I've said this in a YouTube video before, I used to have to try so hard to sell myself to employers. Why should you hire me? Why should they hire me? What's special about me? Why not the other girl? Why not the other guy? Now I can go to the interview and instead, I'm sorry, my notification. Instead, they're asking, why do you want to work for us? And not in the, why do you want to work here kind of way, but rather, you have all of this experience. You're an American, you're a native English speaker, you have certifications in this and that. We're honored. We want to learn from you, as my most recent employer said that just hired me. Words I've never heard in my life before I had a degree. They didn't care about my volunteer experience. They didn't care about my work experience. It wasn't until that was paired together with an actual bachelor's degree. Now I'm working to get beyond that. I want to have a master's. Don't limit yourself. There's nothing wrong with dreaming big and wanting to do big things, but there's also nothing wrong with starting from the bottom. Yes, you can be that one person that gets lucky and you blow up on SoundCloud and you become a huge rapper. Yes, you can be that person that starts a successful business without having any degree. Some of the richest people, if not all of the richest people in the world, didn't finish college. Some didn't even finish high school. But okay, how many people can be successful like that? Out of the millions of people going around preaching about how they're never going to waste a dime on school and school is a scam and blah, 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 how many of those people are rich? How many of them are financially stable? Close to none, right? But how many of them are living paycheck to paycheck? How many of them are getting government aid? How many of them, while they're talking all their talk about how they're never going to go to school, it's a waste of money, how many of them are working at minimum wage jobs, making $15, $14, $10, $9, $8, $7 an hour, working for tips, working customer service, flipping burgers, serving coffee, driving cars, doing delivery? If you think that's better than sitting in school, learning a legitimate skill or trade, whatever you want to do, increasing your knowledge, giving yourself experience, and getting a career where you can make literally 2 to 4 to 5 times what you're making for working the exact same amount of hours while putting in significantly less work. One of the craziest things that really made me happy about being a teacher, that really blew my mind, I was getting paid to do what my bosses would yell at me about at any other company. I remember having to pretend to keep myself busy just to make my manager happy when I was working at places like Walgreens and Walmart. They would never say it, but you were indirectly taught to work slowly, to take your time, because they don't want you to just be standing there and wasting money, basically. It's how they see it. Even if you do all of the work. We called it zoning. If you were done zoning, as they said at Walmart, or facing, as we did at Walgreens, your boss would get mad at you. Your manager didn't like that. They wouldn't tell you to work slowly, but that's what they wanted you to do. They wanted you to take your time. They wanted you to move as slowly as you possibly could, to time it so that you would finish your work when it's time for you to go home. Because if you finish early, they'll get mad at you for just standing there. As a teacher, I could do whatever I want to do. I have full control over the lessons that I plan. I have full control over what we do or don't do that day. I can choose, do we stay at the park for an hour? Do we stay for 20 minutes? Do we sing this song that I really liked from my childhood? I can sit at my desk. I don't have to stand up and walk around and pretend to be doing stuff so that my employer feels like they're not wasting their money on me. They trust me. They trust me as a worker. They trust me as an employee, as a teacher. I never got that anywhere else I worked at. Is every teaching position perfect? No, I've made videos about them here on my channel. But just the fact that's an option for me that didn't exist before. I would rather take my chances and give myself the best possibility of getting a good and stable career than to bet against that, try to be a unicorn, and avoid to go the route of getting an education. When you're making $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month, your student loans are nothing in comparison to that. You can pay that with that type of money. With your small paycheck that you're making right now, it might not seem imaginable, but that's the point. Once you graduate, you can. And I made a video on this already, so I'm not going to go ranting on with that. But for those of you that are going to be like, well, this many people get degrees and they can't find jobs. The people that can't find jobs aren't doing enough to get a job. I made a whole video on that. And or they chose to get a degree in a field in which there is not a large demand for employees. For example, a lot of people are going to school for things like fashion and art, etc. That's a tricky field. I made a whole video talking about that. I'm not going to go into detail on that here. You can watch that if you want to argue that point. But yeah, it's just something that I was just thinking about. Just made me really grateful, knowing that I have that opportunity. And do you get every job you apply to? No. Does everyone love you because of your degree? No. But it is definitely 100 times easier now that I have a degree. And beyond that, like just the experience that I got along the way, thanks to that. I was able to get certification to be an IB teacher thanks to having a degree. I would have never had that chance, that opportunity to work for that school, to take those workshops, to go to those classes, to get that education, had I not already had a degree. It was a prerequisite. I messed up my words. There are some places, some areas, some rooms you won't be invited in because you lack the education for it. It's stupid to put yourself in a position where you say, I don't want to be in debt, but you're living in debt. You're living in poverty already. You have nothing to lose. There are people that are literally driving for Uber and arguing about how college is a waste of money. Okay, well, have fun making your $500 a month and living with your mom at 30. I've been there, done that too. I'm not 30, but you get my point. I realize I want to do more with my life than this. I don't want to work retail forever. Some people change their minds later in life. I'm somebody that was fortunate enough to handle that earlier. No matter how old you are, it's never too late to go back to school. And again, not to change the subject, but to get back where I was, it just makes me really grateful, like I said, for being here. That's something that if I do have children, and when I do, I should say, they'll never be able to relate to that or understand that. Hopefully in the future, it'll stay the same. It's not competitive here. You can literally just apply for any job and pretty much almost all of them will get back to you and want to hire you. They don't play 20 questions with you and, make interviews ridiculous. They authentically just want somebody to help them run their business. They want to pay you. They want to have help. And yeah, I'm just super grateful for that. It's crazy, like coming from my country in the US to coming here, from going from struggling and living in poverty, and both from seeing how my parents were as well as myself when I was working too. So, and then the fact that your employer reimburses you for your transportation, like that's unheard of. Do you know how helpful that would be? Like, I wish that politicians would talk about that. Do you know how helpful that would be if the government paid for your transportation? Like, imagine if, no matter what job you're working, so even if you're working at McDonald's in the US or Walmart, imagine if your employer paid for you to put gas in your car to drive you back and forth to work. Imagine if your employer paid for you to take the train to and from Old Navy or Starbucks. That would have saved me so much money. And last little short story, but I used to work for Old Navy downtown on State Street, and I was spending roughly, I think maybe $300 or $400 a month, so almost an entire paycheck, getting back and forth because I was living in the suburbs at one point. But it was the only Old Navy store that hired me, so I had no choice. And sure enough, I got laid off too. So it's just so crazy. So I'm done. I'm just ranting, just thinking to myself how grateful I am to have the opportunity to be somewhere where even if you've quit, even if you've been fired, no matter what your situation is, there will always be another job lined up for you here, and that you don't have to jump through hoops like how I'm used to doing in the US. And regardless of whether you take my advice and want to get a degree, or if you're satisfied with making minimum wage and you're just going to wait until you make it big, and I hope you do for your sake. But regardless of that your transportation is reimbursed and that it's easy to find a job, whether you want to work at McDonald's, be a teacher, work in a hospital, whatever career you want to have, there are openings available, and they don't give you the runaround with getting back to you. They're very upfront. You can see what the salaries are listed on their website. Like, they don't play games with you. You can see what your hours are going to be, exactly what they're looking for. There are no long 30-minute, 1-hour questionnaires you have to go through. Most companies don't do reference checks, which is great. No credit checks. It's super straightforward. So I'm done. That's it. Just my little rant, just thinking to myself right now, being a little bit grateful. So thank you for watching. Bye.